Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a special edition report of BBC. Today, we're going to be talking about what the price of oil has had an effect in terms of decreasing on the Nigerian economy. So, to move further into this, the first thing that we need to discuss is the fall in oil prices. Globally, from July 2014 to February 2016, oil prices have dropped from $135 per barrel to under $40 per barrel. And it's unfathomable because it's a clear supply and demand issue. There's an excess supply or an oil glut because of increased oil production in the US and Saudi Arabia, led by leading OPEC countries, not dropping oil production. At the same point of time, there's a decreased demand from high consumption continents in countries like Europe and China. So what has this effect been on Nigeria, a net oil exporter? The giant of Africa, because of the dropping oil prices, which accounts for 96% of its own export revenue and 75% of its government revenue, has been suffering. And to know more in detail, we're going to be joined by our Africa correspondent.
Thank you, Rita. This is Georgia from Africa Business News with Nigerian Economics. Small and medium-sized business owners here have been suffering from the government's recent mandate of increasing tax collections to pay for government spending. The 75% of SMEs who were not previously in the tax system have been fighting to maintain profits in an already poor economy. This structural policy change has made it even more difficult for medium-sized businesses to survive with an already depreciating currency that has increased the input costs. Consumer spending continues to decline, and businesses are asking the government, how will we keep our doors open? Widening the tax base has also increased costs of doing business, putting off potential investors in what once was a very stable and growing economy. Back to you, Rita.
Thank you. To go deeper into this topic, we now have two experts joining us in our studio. First, we have the presidential advisor of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi here. And a rising economist, Mr. Leandro, who's currently employed at I Business School. So to begin, I have a question for you, Mr. Leandro. So clearly, the Nigerian economy is in a recessionary gap.
That's right.
Their potential is around 7%. Why do you think this is happening, and what can the government do?
Well, as you well mentioned, Nigeria is an exporter of oil. Basically, due to the decrease in oil prices, that implied that the exports diminish, therefore shifting to the left of the demand curve. Reason by which we should expect lower GDP together with lower price level, and for which we should also foresee or expect expansive monetary policy along with expansive fiscal policy too.
That's a great point. Mr. Yemi, we can see that you plan to increase spending to address the issue. But what are you doing about taxes?
Yes, you're correct. We have really increased our spending. And what we are doing now about taxes, we've introduced a new tax. We're going to be taxing, not increasing the taxes, we're going to be doing more taxation in terms of driving the effectiveness of how much taxes we collect.
Mr. Advisor, but you are implementing an expansive fiscal policy and raising taxes at the same time?
That is what I said earlier on. We are not increasing the amount of taxes. What we are doing is we are improving how we collect taxes. Currently, less than 60% of Nigerians pay taxes, and also introduce a luxurious tax for very expensive things like private jets and jewelry.
I want to go back to a point you mentioned earlier, the monetary policy. So the central bank has reduced the MPR and the CRR. Do you think this is the right move?
I agree. I think that's consistent with what the theory says in expanding having an expansive monetary policy. Although I should be careful about the effect on exchange rate and also effect on price level as well.
That's a very good point. Exchange rate. In fact, we have with us a special Japanese expat living in Nigeria right now who has a question for you regarding the exchange rate. Miss Mizuhu.
Okay, advisor, nice meeting you. I have a question to you. All the foreign exchange indexes telling me that they're 197 naira for US dollar before I coming to the Nigeria. And then when I exchange my money here, it says 250 to 350 naira for US dollar. So what happened? Can you explain me the reason why?
Thank you. That's a very good question. What actually happened is, in Nigeria, there are two different markets for exchange rates. There's the official market that is heavily regulated by the government, and there's the parallel market that works with the forces of demand and supply. For the exchange rate market, the official one is for people that have genuine reasons for wanting foreign exchange. For example, you want to import pharmaceutical products that is not available in Nigeria, whereby the other market is the parallel for people that require foreign exchange for ostentatious items. For example, if you want to take your wife to Saint-Tropez, you should be ready to pay the expensive price.
But even with this falling GDP, the inflation is rising. How is this even possible, Mr. Leandro?
As I probably said, that's related to the movement in exchange rate that has had an impact on the price level. I don't know what you think about
Yes,
that.
I agree with you, and which is the problem we are having. Too much of our CPI basket is based on things that are imported, which implies that a big chunk of our inflation is going to be driven by things that are not in our control. And also, there's been a supply problem we are suffering. As you know, Boko Haram has really affected the supply of food coming from northern Nigeria. So that has really pushed up the prices of food.
Of course, all this is really going to be affecting unemployment. In fact, we have a very Nigerian-looking youth in our audience today, Mr. Jha. What is your question?
What advice can you give to someone that is unemployed for more than 2 years and has always worked on the oil sector in Nigeria? Should I maintain and focus on seeking a job in the oil sector, or should I change?
Sorry, let me jump in here because we're talking about unemployment and we also having high level prices. Doesn't that contradict the Phillips curve?
Well, I'm a politician. I don't know what Phillips curve is. We're spending heavily in solid minerals. We're also spending heavily in agriculture. So when oil prices do reduce next time, it shouldn't affect us because we're going to have a diversified economy. So we're not going to be suffering from over-reliance on oil.
Thank you. In fact, to now go over what is the future of the Nigerian economy, we are going to be joined by our economic advisor in the London office.
Sluggish growth in China and possible further lift of sanctions on Iran will weigh on oil prices, keeping them low for longer. An expansive fiscal policy, if effectively conducted by the Nigerian government, will drive infrastructural development and economic diversification. A monetary policy that keeps rates low should foster long-term investment and increase consumer spending. A 5-year tax exemption for foreign capital encourages foreign investments. These policies will stimulate aggregate demand, increase GDP, and reduce unemployment, although with inflation implications. Remember the Phillips curve? The government should be very careful in order to avoid a structural fiscal deficit. Back to you.
Thank you, guys. That's all from our studio today. If you have any questions, we are going to open the house now.
I just have a question for
Who came up with it?
where are you going to borrow the money for that?
So we're funding our deficit from both domestic and foreign borrowings. And the reason we're doing that is because currently our debt to GDP ratio is about 10.5%, which is way lower than what is available in America at over 100%. So we can still grow our debt levels from 10 to like 50 or 60% and will still be decent. So we're happy to take one.
At what cost? How much are you paying for your money?
At the cost, yeah, well, a lot of it is being sourced locally, which we're going to be issuing bonds. But even if we're to source it internationally, we believe that if we grow the denominator, which is the GDP size, the debt wouldn't be too much of an issue.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, for the Prime Minister as well. Do you think in the long term you're going to have to restructure the size of your government or spending less? Because oil prices we could foresee are not going higher in any way.
Yes, which is what we're doing already. Which is what we're already doing. As I said, we're really diversifying our economy. We're no longer being overly reliant on oil. And also we're really cutting down on government spending in terms of what we spend on ourselves. But as long as expansion is concerned, we're really spending in terms of growing the economy. Because if the GDP growth is faster than the interest rate growth, then we're going to be in a good position.
Diversifying the economy, it takes time, right? And for the moment, you're an oil economy, which means that it's going to take some time to achieve results in this, right? So now, if whatever fiscal policies that you do won't have such an impact because oil prices are low, so you're going to just boost an oil economy. Maybe I'm mistaken,
Yeah, matter of fact, you got it very wrong in the sense that we've always been an agricultural country. Prior to the 1970s oil boom, we were generating the largest chunk of our revenue from agriculture. But having oil in the 70s really was like a blessing and a curse at the same time. So now that we're moving back to where we're very strong in, we have arable land all over the entire country, and we're just going to go back to
So
what
you have
we're
it
doing very
available?
well. Yes, the land is
Which
available.
is the opposite of Saudi Arabia or those kind of countries where only oil comes from.
Yes. So we're very oil rich. We're very agriculturally productive before oil came, and we're just going to return to where we were.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Very good.